Alright, now let's look at the second question. Brishti went on an 8-hour trip in a car. Before the trip, the car had travelled a total of x kilometers, where x is a whole number and a palindrome. At the end of the trip, the car had travelled a total of 26862 kilometers. If Brishti never drove at more than 110 kilometers per hour, then the greatest possible average speed that Brishti drove was what? The kilometer reading at the end of the trip was 26862. At the start of the trip was x and the duration of the trip was 8 hours. Now, Brishti never drove for more than 110 kilometers per hour as the speed. So the maximum distance Brishti could have driven was 880 kilometers. The distance Brishti would have driven is less than or equal to 880 kilometers because Brishti has never driven for more than 110 kilometers per hour as maximum speed. So my initial trip start would be greater than this minus this. Because this is the maximum, my initial trip start would be greater than 26862 minus 880, which is equal to 25982. This will be my least trip start. My least trip start kilometer x cannot be less than this. We also know that x is a palindrome. If the initial kilometer reading was in the range of 25,000, the last two digits should have been 52 for that number to be a palindrome. A palindrome is a number that reads same when read from right to left or left to right. That's why my greatest kilometer reading, my initial kilometer reading cannot begin with 25. It will not be a palindrome. So let's look at the next possible palindrome. 26062. This is the next possible palindrome, and if this was the initial kilometer reading, the total distance that the car would have traveled is 800 kilometers, and my maximum possible average speed would have been 100 kilometers per hour. Please note that they are asking for the maximum possible average speed. Means the car has driven for the maximum possible kilometers while allowing for the initial reading to be a palindrome. The initial reading can be a palindrome as this. Let's say the initial reading was 26162, which is also a palindrome. In this case, the total distance traveled would have been 700 kilometers and the average speed would have been 700 by 8, which is less than 100 kilometers per hour. However, they have asked us as the maximum average speed, and hence the initial distance has to be the smallest while making it a palindrome.